Item: SCP-693. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. After Incident 693/A/050, all instances of SCP-693 are to be returned to Regulation Containment Locker 12CK when not in use. As of Incident 693/E, all instances of SCP-693 have been reclassified as Euclid. As such, each instance of SCP-693 is to be contained in a separate steel containment box, measuring 25 cm x 25 cm x 25 cm. Each containment box is still to be stored inside Regulation Containment Locker 12CK. When testing on SCP-693, it is imperative that only hair from the head of the subject be used. At no point should any researcher directly access SCP-693 when it is in an attuned state. All hair should be removed from SCP-693 by the D class involved in its testing before it is returned to researchers. Description: SCP-693 is a series of 18 cm humanoid dolls, each one made from a single strand of string, with beads of onyx for eyes. Several instances of SCP-693 have varied forms of clothing, from string shirts or pants to cloth headbands and hats. The clothing appears to have no effect on the properties of the doll. New instances of SCP-693 are found with an instruction sheet attached, the contents of which are detailed in Addendum 693/A. SCP-693 reacts as a normal string doll until such a time as a piece of hair from the head of a still living human being is placed in a loop of its string, a process referred to as attunement. For reactions to having hair from a deceased individual used, please see Addendum 693/B. At this point, the doll begins to move of its own volition, portraying the current actions of whoever it is attuned to. SCP-693 also projects all statements made by said individual, as if it were them. The doll reliably portrays all actions and speech of the attuned individual for a period of 9 days. After 9 days, the SCP becomes unreliable in both actions and speech. Depending on the color of base string, the doll will seek to drive its current owner in this case referring to whomever placed the hair in the doll, not the attuned individual, to his death, by inaccurately depicting the actions of its attuned individual. Colors and actions are as follows. Red seeks to anger its owner into increasingly violent fits of rage. Blue seeks to send its owner into bouts of depression, leading to suicide. Yellow encourages its owner to engage in acts of unreciprocated lust. Black encourages its owner into increasingly dangerous situations. If an instance of SCP-693 is successful in causing the death of its owner, a new instance of SCP-693 will be found on the owner's body. The Foundation currently has in containment 7 red instances, 10 blue instances, 5 yellow instances and 1 black instance.